Hey, good afternoon. How's it going? It's so lovely to see you on this Thursday afternoon. Hope you've had a great week. Everybody ready for some snow? Sounds like it's coming. I don't usually pay much mind to the storms that they start telling you about a week and a half before they're actually going to come, because oftentimes they don't even materialize. However, looks like this one is going to grace us with its presence. So, and yet, you know what? It is winter in the Northeast, so that's what it is. I'm kind of excited. Maybe I can catch up on some of my reading. There's been no going out, no Costco on Saturday, so awesome. All right, so what I want to be certain that we cover today is that we finish up source of business. We have only really agent-to-agent referral network to cover. Well, that's a kind of a quick one. And then what I'd like to do is something a little bit different. Typically, we would move into one of our two consults, and that is the buyer consult or the seller consult. And what I'd like to do, I find that when we start with the consult and then move through that and then go to the anatomy of a buyer transaction or the anatomy of a seller transaction, that we sometimes, from a time perspective, have to rush through the anatomy of those transactions. And so what I'd like to do, with your permission, is finish up source of business this afternoon, and then pivot to the anatomy of a buyer transaction and kind of go through what that transaction looks like with you. And here's part of the reason why. There are a whole lot of you on these calls that are already working with buyers. You already have signed contracts. You're already out there doing the do with buyers. And there are things that we can and will cover during the anatomy of a buyer transaction that I think will help you actually solidify transactions and homes for your buyers. So I'd rather do that today, as some of you are heading out for the weekend with buyers, snow or no snow, right? And then get a fresh start on Tuesday, and start Tuesday and then into early Wednesday with the full-blown buyer consult, so that we're not interrupted by a weekend as well. So will that work for everybody? Does that make sense? Sound like a plan? It's a little backwards. I get it. And yet I think that based on who's on this call and how we can best help you create some traction over the weekend, I think it's a better structure. So that is what we shall do. At least 3 of you said yes. So the 3 of you who nodded your head, you are speaking on behalf of the group. We appreciate you. And if anyone didn't like the path that we went through, it was definitely Brett's fault. So you're gonna have to call her and take it up with her. All righty. So any questions from yesterday? We finished yesterday with geographic or demographic farming. Any other thoughts on farming or anything related to that? Yes, Moses.
So yesterday you had mentioned about what's happening in the town that you're living in. For instance, are there any new companies that's coming in, or is the zoning have done something that makes some of the area more attractive or not attractive? How do you find those information, or where do you look to find those information?
So are you referencing kind of the information behind the numbers, like what's driving the market, that kind of thing?
Yeah.
So what I would say is a lot of it is reading, right? A lot of it is reading kind of current events and news, local type stuff, whether that's what are those called? Hubs or the whatever those local kind of blogging type things are. Certainly newspapers online will give you that information. Kind of just plugging in and watching more local style news, right? To keep you abreast of what's going on, not just in the local town or city, but in the county and perhaps the state. And I think the other opportunity is just kind of engaging in those conversations with others, right? And having those conversations to say, you know, hey, I'm curious. I was just looking at the numbers, and it almost seems like we have a little bit of a slowdown in this town in this price range. Are you experiencing the same thing? What do you think is causing it? Right? And just have those dialogues with each other. It's yet another reason why, like, getting in your car and coming into the office and engaging with each other, it just brings you further faster, because there's more knowledge and more information from all of us than just one of us. Does that help, Moses?
Well, yes, in some ways, yes. So what's really kind of eating my mind is that Bridgeport, for the longest time, I've been hearing that we're going to have a train station in Barnum, somewhere around in Barnum Ave area.
Yeah.
And 10 years passed, and here we are. There's not much going on, or every once in a while when I drive by, I see some equipments, and I get a little excited thinking that, oh, okay, they're going to start right now. And I've been in conversation with the city planners or economic developers, and they keep kind of giving the same kind of information, but we haven't seen anything happening at the moment. So I was wondering if there's any other source besides local news. Sometimes local news could be not very accurate.
Yeah, so in that specific scenario, if it's a train station on the New Haven line of the MTA, I would call the MTA, right? They may have better information about what's going on for that specific train station, you know, because it's train related. You know, other than that, you know, when I first got into real estate, the whole conversation was how Super 7, for those of you who have lived in Fairfield County for longer than not, how Super 7 was going to just kind of destroy the towns of Wilton, Weston, Ridgefield, and Reading, because Super 7, you know, as you know, Route 7 kind of goes right up the line in between Wilton and Weston, and then in between Ridgefield and Reading, and that was going to be made into this major highway. There were talks about having it be an elevated highway. There was talks about having it be a 6-lane, you know, extravaganza, and they were going to take properties by eminent domain, and they were going to do this and do that. I lived with that for probably the first 10 years of my career. Always wondering, you know, and having people ask, oh, what's happening? What's happening? What's happening? And we kept ourselves abreast of what was happening as best we could. And frankly, after a year or two, I would say to people, great question. Your guess is as good as mine. They've been saying it's going to be built for God knows how long. And there's still nothing started. No one's taken one property. No one's, well, what if I buy here? What if I buy there? Yeah, you know what? What if you buy someplace else and something that hasn't been being talked about all of a sudden gets put on the books? What if this is the path that the Super 7 is supposed to take, and you buy a half a mile further east in Reading, and then all of a sudden they decide to move it, right? So it became a conversation for me that was a kind of a no-win conversation. And so from a client perspective, I would encourage them to do exactly what I was doing. If that's a buying concern from a buying position, I would absolutely be speaking to local governments and in that case, state government, to see what else you can what else you can ascertain, because we've been being told it's happening for a decade and it's not. And just by the way, I've now lived in Fairfield County for 25 years, and you may note that Super 7 never happened, and it never will. So again, sometimes you do the best you can with the information that is either there or not there, or seems to be there but not really happening. What are they doing at 84 and 7 over in on the Danbury Brookfield line? They cut all the trees down 2 years ago. nothing's occurred. Like, so what's happening? Is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? Are the trees going to grow back? Did they just, I don't know. And Brett says that the Nextdoor app is also another opportunity for some of that information, local and neighborhood information. That's a great point, Brett. All righty. Anything else from yesterday that we should be diving into before we cruise forward with our last source of business? Anything on the finish up of expireds or the idea of geographic or demographic farming? No? Okay. So let us then tackle the last source of business that we'll do together, and that is agent-to-agent referrals. And so somebody talked to me about, when I say agent-to-agent referrals, what is it that I mean? Again, not a trick question. Just tell me what that is. What's an agent-to-agent referral? Yeah, Donna.
Agent from another part of the country referring a client to you, either
Yeah.
within Keller or without or outside of Keller.
Yeah, it's as simple as that, right? It's somebody who's not you, who happens to be licensed, referring you a piece of business in which you typically would then pay a referral fee back to that person for the privilege of receiving that business, right? That can be somebody across the country, around the world. It can be somebody in the same state. It can be somebody down the street who just either is unable to service that piece of business, or for some reason there might be a conflict with that piece of business. Maybe they just don't like the client, and they're passing it off to say, you know what, I'd rather take a fee on this and have you suffer the slings and arrows of these folks, right? Lots of different reasons for all of that. However, as a source of business, what I want to be really crystal clear about is that just doesn't happen because you wake up and you're licensed, right? It doesn't even happen because you're licensed and inside of this organization, you appear inside of the KW referral network, right? Do you all know that? You all appear inside of the KW referral network, inside of Command, because you hang your license inside of a Keller Williams Market Center in Fairfield County. So you all show up there. The question is, A, are you making a concerted effort to stand out? Have you kind of gone into your Command and looked at your referral profile to see what it says, to bolster that up? What kind of things might you do or say to bolster your referral profile so that people were choosing you among everybody else if they were looking to refer business to? What might you say?
Any specialties that you have?
Yeah, like what, Tony? What or anybody? What kind of specialties are we talking about?
SRES or any specific professional designations?
Yeah, so certainly designations. What other kinds of specialties?
Buyers
Oh, go ahead.
buyer's agent, listing agent.
Yeah, so do you specialize on the buy side, on the list side with rentals? What else, Patricia?
I was gonna say, if you specialize in certain types of property, like if you specialize in luxury or first-time buyers or anything like that.
Yep, absolutely. Those are really important to list as well, right? Any specialties or expertise that you might have, right? What else might you list? Anybody speaking another language? Right, list any kind of, if you're multilingual, then list those kinds of things, because people may have Spanish speaking or Mandarin speaking or French speaking clients that they need to refer to someone in Fairfield County. And guess what? If you are now bi or multilingual, and you're the one who's saying, hey, here I am, right? The pool of French-speaking real estate agents in Fairfield County is way smaller than real estate agents in Fairfield County, right? So make sure that you have that listed and noted. What else might you do to stand out?
I had a couple last summer at my former agency. my broker wasn't real patient with old people, and I am. So I had a couple of clients last summer, like in their 80s, and I don't have a problem with that. So I don't know what you really call that, but for whatever reason, some people can do it and other people can't. And I'm one of these ones that has a lot of patience with older people for some reason.
Yeah, and so what I think I would do in my profile is, I don't know that I would say I have patience with old people, but I think what I would say is, specializing in senior relocation, right? Senior moving or senior moves, and then separately list that one of the qualities that sets you apart from other agents is you exhibit and have a whole ton of patience. Right. Those are all things that if you separate the two, I think it speaks exactly what it is you're looking to say there, Brett. So you get the point, right? Polish up that if you have served on our agent leadership council, right? Make sure, especially inside of the KW referral network, right? That means something to other KW agents across the country. So if you've served in that capacity, make sure your profile lists that. If you've taken and graduated from Ignite or Bold or any of those other kind of coaching or training programs, list that in there. Why would you list that kind of stuff in there?
Means you're a committed professional.
Yeah, committed professional, and what else?
Well, if
You're
you're
staying
just getting
current.
started, it can also help show that you're learning, you know what you're doing, you've gone through the process, you're getting the experience, even if you haven't necessarily done a lot of transactions.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. You want to make sure that people across the country know that you take this seriously and that you've received some education. You know how to process a transaction, right? So make sure that you're doing all those things out there. I can tell you one of the things that I used to do is I used to offer a higher referral fee just publicly. Say, hey, you know what? Send your business here. I'll pay you 42.5%. Because everybody else was offering 25%, and then people who were trying to outdo them were offering 30 or 35%, and then the really heavy ones were doing 40%. I'm like, okay, well, I'll offer 2.5% more. Right? If it's business I wouldn't have had anyway, I was happy to pay the referral fee. Did I love writing the check for 42.5% at the end? No, except that when I got to sell an $800,000 house, it was still more money than I was making prior, right? And here's the cool thing, when they're inbound referrals, I pay the referral fee just one time, and now I have that closed piece of business, and I have a client there for life who I'm going to make sure is in my 36 touch program, invited to my events, and getting all the love that I pour out onto my folks, so that not only will that person do repeat business with me, maybe become an investor, maybe upgrade, maybe downsize, maybe whatever, but now I'm going to be receiving referrals from them, and because they're not licensed, I don't owe a fee on that. So over time, when I work that one referral that came to me versus somebody else, the 42.5% just goes away. I make it up with over time. You see how that works? So I'm not saying go and offer 42.5% referral fees. What I'm saying is one of the things you can do to stand out is offer to pay more. Sometimes people are like scrolling through some of those profiles saying, okay, who's going to pay me the most for this hot lead? Money talks. So why not utilize it? What else? Anything else that I'm not thinking of? Yes, Marion.
Rick, do most referrals stick?
Yes, I would say the fast answer to that is yes. Is there a specific concern you want me to address in terms of?
No, when somebody gets a referral, so the transaction continues pretty smoothly, it's a serious thing.
Yeah, generally speaking, I mean, when I make referral, I still make referrals across the country. I refer past clients, I refer friends and family, and receive fees on the back end. What I have noticed is that when I'm in charge of finding that referral agent and making that referral, again, I do my homework and I refer to people who I feel are going to perform at a high level. And then I stay in touch with those folks. Hey, how's it going? Hey, how's it going? And that's both on the client side and on the agent side. So I'm not day-to-day involved, but I'm certainly keeping my finger inside of that whole relationship and that transaction. So I can kind of take the pulse of what's going on there. Yeah, but most transactions, when you take the time to refer to someone competent.
So I've lived in many different places, and so I know people in different areas, not locally. And do you find that it's better, or does it seem to be that people go back to the same referrals, or they try to broaden it? How does it usually work?
When you say people, do you mean
So let's
agents
say
or the client?
somebody is looking for a referral to move to Bridgeport. So you set up a relationship with a Bridgeport agent, and that's the agent that you tend to send all your referrals to?
Oh, yeah. So if so the way I work is if you've successfully closed transactions for me, I'm going to reward you with more. Yes, absolutely. And just
So
by the
it's
way,
a
if you have,
relationship that's nurtured and grows.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. If you didn't do such a great job, then I may look for somebody else the next time. So it's, it's important to do that job and do it well. And just by the way, if you have referrals for Bridgeport, I'm certain there's a bunch of people on this call who'd be thrilled to take that from you. So connect with Marion if she has some Bridgeport referrals. Marissa,
I pulled Bridgeport out of a hat, but I'm sure Bridgeport someday will be there. And then once you give a referral, how long do you stay with that relationship? How much beyond here's the person, here's their situation, and then what? How does someone move in and the other person move on? So in other words, I give Katie Smith the name of John Miller in Bridgeport. And so maybe we do a Zoom together. So everybody meets each other. And then that's it. I step back and let them do everything together.
yeah, for the most part, when you make a referral, I think most agents aren't even doing a conference call or Zoom to introduce everybody. It's not a bad idea at all, right? I kind of like that as a first step. Most I think are not doing that. They're talking to the client that they're referring about who they're going to be referring it to, passing the information off to that agent. Agent again connects with the referred client and takes it away. For me, again, as I said, I stay in touch just with the client and the agent. Every couple of weeks, I'll just kind of touch base to see how things are going. Not anything more than that. I just like to know where things stand and how everyone's faring. But yeah, when you send something off as a referral, it's a referral. It's gone from you for the most part, and that other agent is taking over and working things through from start to finish. The only thing missing in this conversation is the actual referral agreement, right? So there is a document inside of Command and DocuSign that you need to be certain that you get signed. It'll be filled out by you when you're making the referral. It gets sent to the other agency, and then they sign and agree that once they close the property with that particular referred client, that a certain percentage will be paid back to our brokerage and then through us to you. That's an important piece, right? Because you just doing referrals and not having anything in writing ends up coming back to bite you. Marissa.
Thank you.
Sure.
Sorry, I was on mute. So I may have missed this in the beginning. I think I heard you mention something about having some sort of profile set up where you would list like your specialties and all those things. How do I find that? And edit my profile?
So that's inside of Command, and specifically in the referral network. what I would say is seek out, I think, Joe McHugh, I think, just did this morning. I think was Referral Network was this morning. So that recording should be available to you certainly by tomorrow if it's not already. So I would go and watch that because that'll tell you exactly what you need to do and where you go. But that's where it's located. It's inside of the Referral Network, which is inside of Command.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Tony? No? Okay. So let us then have a quick conversation around being purposeful, right? How would you build, if the whole conversation is around building an agent-to-agent referral network, right? Which means now you're going to be on purpose about meeting people, not necessarily local to you, people being agents local to you, so such that you can have a network of people that you can market to so they remember you over time and send you business. Where might you meet these people?
You mean besides family reunion?
Oh, well, there certainly is that, right? We are going to beat that horse until it's good and dead. My goodness. However, national events are probably the best place to go in and meet other agents, right? You're looking to find agents from Idaho and Oregon and Texas and Arizona. What else are you doing to meet them in person, right? Because you can be on Zoom calls, in Facebook groups, on blogs, and all connected online as well. That's yet another source of finding and creating those referral partners. But the best place to do it, the best way to do it is in person, right? So educational events, whether they're national or regional, are excellent to plug into. How else? How else are you meeting people? Yeah, John.
I was gonna say some of these other communities, they have like events. Like I know, the Pivot Shift Ahead community is having a in-person meetup. So like some of these other like communities have their own like separate meetups and stuff like that you can go to.
Yeah, absolutely, and that can be at national events or it could be locally, depending, right? There are other opportunities to meet other real estate agents, like in investor meetups, right? You can go to the is Dave on the call? No, he's not, right? And so we're looking to bring one of the Connecticut chapters to have meetings right inside the Stanford Market Center training room, such that agents who belong there from other parts of the state will come and you'll be able to meet them if you're plugged into that, right? So now when somebody from the quiet corner up in the northeast of our state has a referral for a listing or a buyer down here in Fairfield County, you've maintained communication, and that you then have that opportunity. John.
I was gonna say I became a member of the CT RIA, I believe it was you're referring to, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
But yeah, I attended the last two meetups and I'm going to start attending them faithfully. I got one referral literally the day after, from that of an investor buyer, but they ended up not going with the house, whatever. So that fell through. Moral of the story is I got a referral the day after I attended the first meetup.
Yeah,
just from
that works.
I'm going to that.
I love that. I love it. Donna.
Another thing is other national organizations like NAR, going to those conferences. And I'm a member of Women's Council of Realtors. And until I joined Keller Williams, that was my major source of referrals.
Yeah, I love that. Right. So there's lots of different networks that you can belong to. And so recognize that plugging in, right? That's really what we're talking about. We're talking about plugging in both to our company and our industry at the local, regional, local, state, regional, and national level, just puts you in front of more people, which when you work that properly, puts you in front of more opportunities. Now, one of the things I want to just spend a few minutes on is the idea of being on purpose about creating that network, right? You've heard Kimberly Tapscott on the morning calls talk about how purposeful she is when she goes to an event like Family Reunion, where she sets a target of meeting 100 new real estate agents every single day that she's there, right? It's a 4 to 5 day event depending on when you arrive. So that's 400 new real estate agents. The first couple of times I attended national events, I set the same target. It wasn't 100. It wasn't 100 a day. Kimberly kind of rocks it out with those kind of numbers. For me, I wanted to make sure that while during the course of time I was there, I met at least 2 real estate agents from every state. Right. So I would kind of walk and search out for it. I'm like, oh my God, I need an Ohio. Where's an Ohio? Right. And so sitting in classes, kind of sitting down, kind of looking at everyone's badge. Everyone thinks you're looking at their belly button, but you're looking at their badge, right, to see where they're from so that you can start up a conversation. And so make it a game. However, be on purpose about it if you're attending these kinds of things. Brett, and then I'll give you the secret to being on purpose about this.
I just have a quick question about Family Reunion. Do they designate you guys by state?
Your badge will have your name and your state on it, yes.
But I mean, collectively, do you like when you, yeah, okay. So it's not like table. I was just curious, like convention style, just was curious.
Yeah, no, it's every human being for themselves. Everyone kind of scatters like ants. It's
Gotcha.
it's not organized by state in any way. You just have a name badge that has your town and state on it. Yeah. So one of the ideas that I want to throw out to you is, what if you on purpose built a network without leaving your couch? Right, I'll give you that quick idea because whereas I wholeheartedly encourage you to meet people in person, one of the things that I did when I was brand new in real estate, because I would look around my office and see people getting these referrals, getting listing referrals and getting buyer referrals from other people across the country. I'm like, okay, well, I want some of that, and I don't know anybody else across the country, so how am I going to do that? So what I did is I just set up a system. I took out a map of the United States and I circled the top 30 markets, starting up in the Northwest with Seattle, and I just kept circling. And I circled Seattle, and I circled, San Francisco and Los Angeles and San Diego, and went back up to the top, and just kept circling till I got to the East Coast, and I had 30 major markets. Here's one tip. Don't go too heavy out in the West, because there's a lot of major markets in the East. And so if you get too many out in the West, either that or just decide to do 40, right? 30 is just a number I'm throwing out at you. Let's circle the major markets. And then what I did is I went on, back when I was doing this 100 years ago, I went on realtor.com, right? Because that was probably the biggest and best aggregator. Today, you could utilize either the KW referral network if you're looking for top KW agents, or you could certainly use a system like Zillow that will give you some of this information. Realtor.com still works if you're interested in doing that. But really what all you're doing is you're taking a look and finding the top 3 listing agents in Seattle. Why are you looking for listing agents?
Because the people that sell their houses have to move somewhere.
Yeah, that's exactly right, right? The listing agents are the ones who likely have people who now need to relocate. Plus, when you're on online aggregators, guess what? That's what you see. You see the people who have listings. Those are the names and faces that are on those sites, right? If you have 50 buyers that you're working with and 0 listings, guess what? You don't show up on realtor.com or Zillow. Right, it's the listing agents that are showing up, and so by going to those aggregator sites or to the KW referral network and searching for listing agents, you can kind of do a little research and figure out who's got stuff going on. You write their names and numbers down, and then move on to the next city and find the 3 there, and the next city, find the 3 there. You'll end up with a list of about 100 real estate agents across the country. And then you do something really quite simple. You pick up the phone and you call them. And here's what you might say. Donna, could you be my friend out in Seattle for me real quick?
Yes, I will.
That'd be brilliant. And so ring, ring.
Hello,
Yes, hi, is this Donna?
it is. Who's this?
Donna, hi, it's Rick Scott. I'm with Keller Williams in Connecticut, clear across the country from you. How you doing today?
I'm good. How can I help you, Rick?
Yeah, so I just couldn't help but notice that it looks like you're kind of killing it already in 2022. So congratulations on what looked like a great year last year and the listings that you have posted so far this year. How are things going out in Seattle?
They're doing very well. Thank you.
Brilliant, brilliant. So listen, I just wanted to make a quick call. I am actually looking for referral partners that I could send outbound clients to were they to leave Connecticut and head to Seattle. I was impressed with how you looked online, and I wondered if that would be something you would be interested in, being my partner and receiving my outbound referrals when I have them coming to Seattle.
Absolutely. Thank you for the call. I would love that. I'd love to partner with you.
Oh, that's awesome. 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 Excellent. I'm going to put a big old yes next to your name. Thank you for that. And what I'll do is when we finish this call, I will email you if that's okay. So you have all of my contact info and then just reply. So I have all of your contact info.
That would be absolutely perfect.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Hey, Donna, before I let you go, can I ask another just fast question?
Sure. What you got?
Do you have at least 2 referral partners in Connecticut?
2. I don't think that we do.
Oh, excellent. So I'm just wondering, could I maybe apply for one of those slots?
You sure can. I love that question. Absolutely.
Oh, great, great, great. Right, that's excellent. So you know what, as I said,
Are you in? What part of Connecticut?
I'm actually down in Fairfield County. However, I have team members who cover the entire state. We're a tiny little state versus Washington, so we can spread our wings and help you wherever you might need some help.
Good to know.
Excellent. Well, as I said, I'll send you a quick email after we finish this call, and I look forward to sending business back and forth.
And I as well. Thank you for the call. I appreciate it.
Sure thing. You have an awesome year. Talk to you soon.
You too. Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Donna. So let me ask this. Is that a hard call to make? It's like one of the easiest calls you'll ever make as a real estate agent, right? Why does it work so well?
Because you're
people
both
don't
doing
wanna
the same
close.
thing and you could be putting money in their pocket.
Yeah, that's right. Like how did the call start? Did the call start with me asking for something?
No.
It called with me giving, right? If you got a call from somebody in Seattle that said, hey, you know what, I found you online and I sometimes have buyers and sellers who need assistance in Connecticut. I wondered if you could help me out. What would you say?
Yes.
Right? Of course you'd say yes, right? So the idea of calling and offering to send business, you're not saying you're sending Tom and Susie Smith today. You're saying, if and when I have business coming your way, would you be okay handling it? So of course, the agent says yes to that. And then some compliments always work wonders. And then you get to say, hey, by the way, before I go, let me just ask this quick question. Hey, why did I ask if Donna had 2 folks in Connecticut?
Just in case she said she already had one.
Yeah, exactly right. Right. Trust me, because I've done this and I've been there. And I used to ask, hey, do you have somebody that you refer to in Connecticut? Oh, yes. No. Well, crap. Okay, that's not what I wanted you to say. Right. So I just changed the question to, do you have at least 2 people? It oftentimes gets a chuckle.
You don't want to be greedy.
Right. And then ba-boom, you're part of the network. It's a fast and simple call. And then all you do is you follow up with the email you wrote down, because you wrote down from being online, you wrote down Donna's name, her telephone number, and her email address. You send that email with the following in the subject line. Thank you so much from your new referral partner in Connecticut, Rick Scott. Except you would input your name, don't put my name. And then you go to the other two people in Seattle and have the same conversation. And then you move down to San Francisco and LA, and you see you have these conversations. So in an afternoon or two, you've now had 100 quick conversations with top listing agents across the country who have said to you, hey, I would love to have this scenario back and forth with you. You then put them all in your database and tag them agent to agent referral network. And once a month, you're going to have an automated online 12 direct, right? This is all just about farming. You're going to set up an online 12 direct so that once a month, something goes out to those 100 people that just touches them. Hey, don't forget me, referrals in Connecticut, referrals in Connecticut. People always ask me, well, what do you send? Here's my main answer. It doesn't matter, because they're not going to open it anyway, which is why you have to have your name, the state of Connecticut, and the word referral or referral partner in the subject line. That's how you get credit for the touch, 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 touch. When you finish that, you then go back to your map of the United States and you circle 30 more secondary markets and you do the same thing. And then if it were me, I would go back and circle 30 tertiary markets and do the same thing. And in a very short period of time, you could have 300 real estate agents in a database that you are now touching monthly in an automated online drip, touch, 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 touch. Do you think you might get some business over the course of a year if you're touching 300 top listing agents across the country every single month, reminding them that if they have someone coming your way, that you'd be happy to help them? I can tell you that this is a system that I did when I was brand new to the industry. I only got through the first 100. My biggest regret is that I didn't follow through and go to secondary and tertiary markets like I just advised you to do. I only went through the big ones. So I started with about 100. I got 3 closed pieces of business from those 100 people in the first year. 3 closed pieces of business. It was like $40,000 in GCI for what was ended up being a couple of afternoons work of having really positive, uplifting, smiley, happy conversations. I think I might do that all day long and twice on Tuesday, right? I'm going to give you an example of why I know this works in a second, but first I'm going to take Marlene's question. Go ahead, Marlene.
Hi. In that conversation, do you get involved in talking about the referral fee?
I just gave you the conversation.
So no, I mean, what if they say, how much are you going to give me, you know?
Well, if they ask the question, then answer it, right? So, but here's the thing. Sometimes we don't do things because we overthink them, right? And I'm a classic example because I am a classic overthinker, right? And what I'm encouraging you to do is all this stuff is way simpler than you want to make it. I don't have to spend time negotiating referral fees with 100 or 300 people when they send me their first. And my experience is that almost nobody, perhaps nobody of the 100 people I called had a discussion about, well, what is the referral fee going to be? They were just happy to get the call, have someone think about them sending business. And so when the referrals came in, most of them were at 25%. I think one of them was higher. And I was happy to sign whatever they sent. But don't worry about it. It's not a relevant part of just making the contact and building the database. Because the reality is, I don't care what kind of referral fee we're passing back and forth. I want the business. Does that help?
Yeah, thanks.
You're welcome. John.
So back when you did the last Ignite class, I tried this for like 2 days.
Yeah.
I got like 5 partners and then I completely fell off and haven't done it since. My issue was like systematizing it in terms of like the follow-up. That's where I fell off completely. So is
Well,
this
so what do you mean by the follow? Do you mean actually sending the email out to say, thanks for talking to me and here's my contact information? Or do you mean do you mean putting them into a database and starting the monthly drip? Or both?
Yeah, kind of both.
Right. So here's my advice. My advice is spend an hour in an afternoon. Spend an hour on the phone. Carve out an extra 20 minutes and make sure that you don't finish that day until you have put all of the people that said yes to you into your database in Command and tagged them agent to agent referral. Right. So now you're building it as you go. The struggle we have is I'm going to do this and do this and do this. Now I have this mountain of data that I have to find all this time to enter. I would say if you're good enough on the computer, you could actually do it, enter it as you go. Have the conversation as I'm finishing up with Donna. I hang up the phone, I enter her into my command, I tag her agent to agent referral, I make the next call. And at the end of the day, group all those people together and push out a system. I'm almost positive there is a smart plan and or some kind of system that that's just a referral touch system that you can set it and forget it. And so if you launch 10 people one day and 11 people the next day, and then you don't do it for a couple of days and you launch 7 people the next day, I would chunk it down. Don't wait until you're going to do this one big project of 100 people, or else what happens to you is what happens to all of us, right? Because life and business and everything else kind of comes in and gets in the way. I would just chunk it down. Does that help? Cool. Donna Doyle.
So I've gotten 5 or 6 emails from other agents across the country to me, not phone calls, but emails from KW Connect requesting to be my business partners. And at first I had no idea what they were. So, and I think at first when I clicked on it, it didn't work. So now it's finally working and I just accepted them all. But we could also do something like that, right? If you don't want to make the phone call, you can just try, obviously making the phone calls better to make a personal relationship. But I now have 5 or 6 in my KW Connect. I don't even know how to go in and try to create my own, but I'll get there.
Yeah, and so again, Joe's the one to help you with that, and that 30-minute referral thing he does, which he did this morning at 11:30. Find that recording, right, and plug into that, because that's the fastest way to know what buttons to push, where to go, and how to do that. 100%, I think that utilizing the KW referral network is another opportunity. I think the plan that I'm pushing forth is one step better than just doing the KW referral network. Because, remember, there's 180,000 of us across the country. And so 180,000 agents, it's easy to get lost in all of that, right? That's why I like the system of, okay, find 3 in each of those markets, make the quick phone call, create that over time, and set yourself, call 10 people a week. If it's a time issue or whatnot, set aside 1 hour every single week and build this over time. Such by June, you're done, you've got 300 people going. You don't necessarily have to spend the next 2 weeks doing only this. Chunk it down and do a little bit at a time. And all of a sudden you wake up and you're like, whoa, Mamma Mia, look at this. I have this whole referral network built. Donna Gilbert.
Yeah, and so making the phone call, doing Rick's plan is, the referral network is great. And yet, this is better, and I'll tell you why. We are constantly competing for attention and for someone to pick me. I want to know that you have had a thought about this, you've got a system, you've taken the time, you've called, you've shown up in my world, you're showing me your initiative. I'm going to send you clients. I need to have seen some sort of demonstrated ability. That's just the beginning. And the reason why I love that, do you have two referral? It does get a little chuckle, but it also tells me that you're thinking this through. All of these things get lost when we just want to animate everything. Make that initial, then you can send the animated email. But like that first step is critical.
Yeah, I would agree. Anna.
So I do have already maybe like 20 referrals partners over the country, but I would say that the best contact that I kind of like reach is with one partner in New York City with Seth Levin.
Mhm.
And because I sent him, as Dana said, I sent him referral. But not only I send him referral, I'm always constantly coming back to him and bringing him some other ideas because we just prospecting that referral and trying to convince list with us in New York City. So now next week we will do like together Zoom call and I will record it and I will send over to. So I mean, I guess he's busy, so I'm bringing him ideas. He loves this, he improves, and he wants to work. And now, like, we just calling each other, are you coming for family reunion, you know, just have human conversation. But I don't have that connection with other agents, so I guess we need to make more calls and touch on a
Yeah.
human base, you know, just like we treat our database, same thing.
100%. Well, and that's you know, I think what Anna and Donna are both saying is that the idea of having that one-on-one conversation, you're starting and then building a relationship, right? Instead of just pushing buttons, and it makes a difference because for me, remember, as I've said numerous times before, you're always modeling behavior, and so if you're modeling behavior, I want to see as the agent out in Seattle, I want to see you modeling proactive, smart behavior, right? I want to know that there's someone behind all of this, and that it's not just right. And I get that with even a short conversation. Brett, and then Jonathan, and then Christine, and then we're moving forward.
This might be a dumb question. I'm going to use Tampa, Florida as an example. I lived in Tampa for 28 years. So with three like Keller Williams for referrals, would I pick like 3 areas of Tampa and reach out to 3 different brokerages? Does that make sense?
Yeah, you certainly could. I mean, here's what's cool about this. There's no right or wrong answer, right? If you're finding 3, and maybe it's not 3, maybe because you have deeper roots in Tampa, maybe you're going to find 6 people because you need to service a whole bunch of people and you want more coming your way, right? There's no right or wrong answer. My thought would be, I never got specific about who does the northern part of the city, who does the southern part of the city. I just called the top 3 people because they had the most listings, right? So again, the idea is simplify, because when you simplify, you'll actually go and get it done. Don't think too hard about it. As a matter of fact, do the easy stuff. And then when it starts to work, what you might find is say, you know what? I think next week I'm going to get a little more detailed and try and find somebody in this area and this area, because I think the people I have are only in the north, and there's this whole area that maybe is untapped down here. Then go back and structure it maybe a little bit more strategically. But I think the first run is find 3 top listing agents and create the relationship, and then go back and build it bigger later. Jonathan.
Hey, Rick, how you doing?
Good.
My question is, what is some advice that you can give me as I'm a new agent? How fast should I be looking for these referrals? How fast should I be building these connections? Is it sort of like I need to build my reputation first before I do that, or is there like a time limit I should be looking at?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and here's my answer to it. When you're new or newer to the business, or you're relaunching your business, you have way more time than you will later on as your business gets busy. As I mentioned, I did the first 100, and then I started to list and sell real estate, and so it escaped me. I never went back to it because my business started to grow and I got quote unquote busy. So I think when you're brand new is the perfect time to set this foundation, because you set it once and then it just grows over time. And if you don't set the foundation, you don't focus on it, you oftentimes don't have that show up. I know agents today who have been in the business for 20 years who have very limited agent-to-agent referral networks, right? Because they didn't build a foundation to start. So my advice is go and get 300 people in your database between now and next week, and worry about building your reputation and your business and your whatever later on. Because here's the other thing. When you make the call and you use the script that I just laid out for you, where in that conversation did Donna say, so I'm just curious, how new are you to the business? How many houses have you sold? What area do you serve? Right? And the answer is it didn't, because that conversation hardly ever comes up. And if it does, you just tell the truth. Right? You know what? I actually just opened a powerful real estate firm, and I'm building this from the ground up, and I'm really excited to kind of blow it out of the water and help your clients. Just tell the truth. It won't come up. I can almost guarantee it. However, if it does, you just tell the truth. And if somebody that you call says, oh, really? You're new? Well, I'm not going to give you anything because you're new, which again, never, ever happens. But if they did, you just simply say, you know what? Thank you so much for your time. Have an awesome year, and call somebody else. Make sense? Does that help?
That's great advice. Thank you so much.
Yeah. I would rather you just jump in and do it. Even if you do it, even if it's messy, even if it's whatever, even if people tell you no, because most people are going to tell you yes. And then at least you have a foundation. Then we can go back and fix it or do it differently or do whatever later. Right? Sometimes it's a matter of fake it till you make it. Christine.
Yeah, I had a couple quick ideas. Firstly, the woman in Tampa it just made me think of something else. Every time I go to Tampa to take my son to school, I reach out to one of the agents down there, and one of the girls down there, she introduced me to her office, and we went out for coffee, and now she's become a great friend. So there's Keller Williams offices everywhere. So if you're traveling, stop into a Keller Williams office. Also, you could connect on LinkedIn. Again, it's that business page. You get to see their background. They get to see your background. People who are on LinkedIn, they read their personal messages. And then at family reunion, what I do is when you go into breakout rooms, typically people say, things like, hi, I'm Christine from Connecticut or from wherever, and they put their email addresses. I copy down all of them and then send them a personal email. And if they put in their phone number, I reach out to them that way as well.
Yeah, I love that. And before Christine, actually, hold on, I'm going to spotlight you, Christine, just a minute.
Okay.
Everyone just look in the lower left-hand corner. What does it say? Right?
Yeah.
It says in Connecticut, right? So, and that's important because if you're online in these Zoom rooms doing the Zoom thing, now people know exactly where you're at. And if people are scrolling, I can tell you, I've been in rooms where my name with Connecticut has been on it, and someone has private messaged me in the chat saying, hey, I have a referral for you. Where in Connecticut are you? Right? Because realtors always are looking around for
absolutely
to service their
I'm on
clients.
the luxury calls too.
Love it.
Exactly.
Right? Great tips,
Yeah.
Great advice. John, what else you got?
I was gonna say two things. The Connecticut part, like to your Zoom link, and some of the other calls, it's like I'm either John with the with the hair or John in the Connecticut. And so that hasn't gotten me any referrals yet, but it's getting other people familiar with me, which then leads to referrals, I hope, in the future. But I was gonna say, what's a good time to start calling these people? Because when I tried it back then, another reason why I kind of got discouraged and stopped doing it is that I realized very quickly that not everyone's up and running at 7:30 in the morning. And most of these people that I did call were like half dead in bed.
Yeah, well, so great question. And you make a point that it's not only about the state that you're in, but setting yourself apart, right? And if you end up being John with the hair, I've now changed mine to Rick with less hair than John. So that I can start to be known as, oh, that's that guy who has less hair than the other guy. Right. But here's the thing, John says he's John with the hair. For probably 10 years, when we first opened our first Keller Williams office, there was a team leader in New Jersey, and I didn't know her last name because she was Judy, the hat lady. And somebody said to me, what's Judy's last name? I mean, Judy who? Judy the hat lady? Yeah, what's her last name? I'm like, it's not the hat lady, right? And it wasn't. But she created an entire persona, and everybody knew who when you said Judy the hat lady, everybody knew who you were talking about, right? And knew where to find her, knew she was in New Jersey, so creating a persona, if you have something on you that kind of stands out or that's unique, right? Or that you can utilize like that. I love that idea, just by the way. What time do you start calling? You know what, the jury's out on that. What I would say is most of that is going to be trial and error. For me, I was on the phone by 8 o'clock, right? That was my path. For some people that was too early, and for some people it was right on because I was grabbing them before they left for work. There's a school of thought that says 9 o'clock. There's a school of thought that says 10 o'clock. There's a school of thought that says only call in the evening because you're not going to get people at home during the day.
We're talking about agent to agent referral calls, though.
Oh, agent to agent calls?
Yes, yes.
Oh, sorry. I heard that. I heard that incorrectly. Yeah. So if you're calling another agent, I would say make it after 9 o'clock. Yeah. So yes. Sorry, I misheard that. Make it during business hours. And yes, real estate agents have business hours. If you don't, that's on you, right? Real estate agents do have business hours. And those business hours can very well be 9 to 5 or 9 to 6. Just remember, if you choose not to have business hours, that's on you. That's not on the industry. You don't get to say, oh, well, I'm a realtor, so therefore. Go ahead, John.
No, I was going to ask, how long are you going to keep your name as Rick with less hair than John? Because that would then make people ask, who's John, which would then increase my marketing presence.
Well, there you go. There you go. See me on the back end. We'll make a deal. So, Christine, what else? Oh, I think she just didn't put her hand down. Okay. So, lastly, I want to tell you a quick story about how I know this works when you're building an agent-to-agent referral network. I have a connection with a woman by the name of Michelle Edwards. And Michelle Edwards is in North Carolina. How do I know this? Well, I know this because for 17 years, I have been receiving an email one time a month from Michelle Edwards in North Carolina. She's a Keller Williams agent. I know that about her. I must have met her at like maybe my first family reunion ages and ages ago. How do I know that? Well, because she never actually called me. I just showed up on her roster one day. And so presumably I met her and gave her my contact information. And for a dozen years, once a month, I would get something from Michelle Edwards. Again, people always ask, oh, well, what did she send you? I have no idea, because never once in maybe 17 years have I ever opened her email. Don't know. All I know is that it was from Michelle Edwards, and the subject line was your referral partner in North Carolina. Merry Christmas from your referral partner in North Carolina. Happy New Year from your referral. It was always something about referral partner in North Carolina in the subject line, and it came from Michelle Edwards. over and 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 over, such that about 5 years ago, 12 years into this process, one of your colleagues came to me and said, hey, Rick, I have buyers who are looking to buy in North Carolina. I'm curious, do you know? And before they could even finish, I said, Michelle Edwards. It's like I waited 12 years to be able to say Michelle Edwards' name. And after they leapt back and said, my goodness, drink decaf, we realized that North Carolina is a big old state. So we thought, oh, okay, well, let's figure this out now. They said, where's Michelle Edwards? And I said, I have no idea. I just know she's in North Carolina. Maybe you should give her a call. I said, where are your buyers? She said, well, they're going to the Raleigh-Durham area. I said, all right, well, you know what? Let's just look up Michelle Edwards online. Well, guess what? Guess where Michelle Edwards is located? Raleigh. So long, dull, boring story short, I connected one of your colleagues with Michelle Edwards after 12 years of being touched monthly by an automated program. I never spoke to her in person. After that very first time I met her, which I don't really even remember, she was referred down these buyers, $500,000 buyers. She sold them a property. She got to make money. She sent a 25% referral fee back to our agent. Our agent got to make money. Everybody's happy. See how it works? So don't underestimate the power of building this foundation inside of your business. And I'm just going to reiterate Jonathan's question and my answer. When should I do this? Answer, now. Just get it done, bang it out. Between now and the end of Ignite, just find a way to build a database of 300 real estate agents. You heard me make the phone call. It's the easiest thing you could possibly do. Here's my thought for you. If you're looking to avoid calling your database, well, one of the ways you can push that out for another week is make these phone calls instead. Just keeping it real, right? Questions, comments, concerns about this source of business, this topic? No? All righty. So here's what's today. Today is January 27th. We go, when does Ignite finish? I think Ignite finishes on the 10th, right? So we've got 2 more weeks. 2 more weeks. How many of you, just put it in the chat or text me privately, how many of you will commit between now and February the 10th to building a foundational agent-to-agent referral group in your database? I should get 27 responses. Just saying, right? Because here's what I want, again, just trying to keep it real for everybody. If you won't do that, because it's truly the easiest foundational platform to build, and it's the easiest thing to follow up with. You literally set it and forget it. I'm gonna throw a bold law at you here, and the bold law is how you behave in here is how you'll behave everywhere. And what that means is if you're looking at this sitting in class saying, you know what, seems like a pain, seems like a lot of calls, I don't like to call people. If you're dismissing the value of something in here, be really cautious, because you're going to start dismissing the value of that and much more outside of this classroom. And outside of this classroom is where your business lives. That's just how humans work. That's why it's a bold law, right? If you'll commit and do it while we're together, you'll just go and commit and do everything else outside of this classroom. It's all about choice.
Hey.
Make yours. Let's
Rick?
do it. Yes,
Rick,
sir.
It's Cal. I may have missed it in the beginning. Was there a particular script that you had? Did I miss that, or was that?
I did, yes. I role played that with Donna. So tomorrow morning, this will be posted and you can kind of go back, and it's probably at the 40 or so minute mark, maybe 45-minute mark. So
Okay.
just look for that. And I role played it with Donna. It's very, very simple.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, guys. Questions, comments, concerns about all the different places that you can find business, because we've now gone through most of them. All righty, so here's your homework. You have between now and Tuesday at 4 o'clock to write out, please don't just think, write, think first, that always helps. Think first and then write down the lead generation strategy that you are going to implement. Because to sit for days and days and days and listen to me drone on and on and on about all these different strategies and then not build a plan that you go ahead and implement, you will have wasted your time. So I don't want you to waste your time. Make sure that your time starts to pay you back. So on Tuesday, please come prepared to discuss the lead generation strategy that you have chosen for you. That means which 2 or 3 of these sources of business are you going to choose to focus on? I'll make it simple for you. Pick 2. Don't even go to 3. Pick 2. I would encourage a listings focus and pick 2. And when you pick 2, write a small business plan around each, right? We walk through what a 1-3-5 is. 1 main goal, 3 main priorities, 5 strategies or action items underneath each of the 3 priorities. What does that look like? Build a small business plan around each of your 2 sources that you're going to focus on. And then I want you to do one step further. I want you to tell me on Tuesday, after you've picked your 2 sources that you're going to focus on and built a small business plan around them, I want you to project how many closings will come from each of those sources of business, each of those 2 sources of business for you between now and December 31st. It's a little bit of a pro forma. Project how many closings you'll have. And then we'll talk about that a little bit more on Tuesday. Deal? Good. All righty. So, changing hats completely. Let's take a deep breath. And start talking about buyers. As I said to you in the beginning, what I want to do with you today is get through as much of the anatomy of a buyer transaction as we possibly can between now and the end of our time together, such that we can start fresh on Tuesday with the buyer consult. It is likely we won't finish the anatomy buyer transaction, but we'll just kind of do the last bit when we meet up again on Tuesday. Now, the anatomy of a buyer transaction can be found in your materials in that link. I just put the, oh, no, I didn't. Hold on. I will put the link again in the copy, paste. So there's the link to the materials, and it's a document in the materials called Anatomy of a Buyer Transaction. Anatomy of a Buyer Transaction. It's a PDF you can open on your computer, or you can print that out if you're able to do that at home, so you can follow along. We're going to dive right into the top of that anatomy of a buyer transaction and run through the first 10 or so real quickly, because the first piece of it, ultimately, we've covered, except for the consult, we've covered. And that is, number 1, you're going to lead generate. Like, what does the anatomy of a buyer transaction look like? Well, it starts with you lead generating and finding opportunities with buyers, and then going ahead and getting an appointment with that buyer, You're going to consult that lead and meet with them and work through the consultation, which again, will start on Tuesday. You're going to have the client speak with a financing person. I'm going to have Karen Mulreed come in and talk with you about what that looks like, what that conversation looks like, and how you can leverage our mortgage partners to get that done for and with you. You're going to show homes and continue to consult till they find the right one. And then you're going to have that client come back to the office and have a conversation around what it is they want to do to move forward. Now, before we dive any further, I want to ask this. That consult, once they find the one and come back to the office, needs to include some numbers, which means you have to get good at pulling some statistics from the MLS. So what numbers do you think would be helpful when you're consulting a buyer who wants to make an offer on a property?
Property taxes?
So yeah, all the information that's going to be on the listing, right, including bedrooms, baths, square footage, taxes, all that stuff. So you're gonna be working from that listing, absolutely. What else? What about market type numbers?
That's the
Marlene?
sale price. Oh,
So sold listing, sold properties.
Yeah, so you're gonna find some comps, right? Just as if you were the listing agent looking for comps to list a property, you're gonna find the best 3 sold comps for these particular buyers so that they can see what things are selling for. Go ahead, John, what did you have?
I was gonna say list the sales price ratio.
Yeah, so you do need to know the list to sale price ratio, because if the list to sale price ratio in the last 30 or 40 days, 30 to 60 days is 103% versus 87%, right? That gives the buyer a whole lot of information about what's going to be expected from the seller, right? What else?
Days on market.
Yeah, I love that, Barbara. Days on market. How fast are things actually cycling through? That gives the buyer some additional information to say, hey, you know what? Things are selling in 12 minutes. So if they're selling in 12 minutes, do you think the offer has to be strong or weak? Strong, right? 100%. So all of these little clues that help the buyer make good decisions, and they're rooted in not your opinion. They're rooted in objective fact, which is why I'm having this conversation with you. Because too many agents make the mistake of saying things like, well, you know, the market's moving really quickly and there's probably going to be multiple offers. So you're going to have to make an offer probably $50,000 over the asking price and waive all of your contingencies. And the buyer looks at you because it's the first time you've said that, because you didn't set expectations up front, and you don't have any data to actually back that up. And so when they hear that, here's what they hear. Hey, I don't really care so much about you and the property that you're about to purchase. However, I really care about the money that I'm going to make from it. So this is the best way for me to get a fast closing under my belt. That's what they hear. Those aren't the words you said. And 9.5 times out of 10, that's not what you mean. It's not how you feel. It's not where you're coming from. But without setting really clear expectations up front about what they can expect, and then showing them the data that supports that, it sounds and feels like an opinion, and it sounds and feels like a real estate-y opinion, right? Everyone knows what I mean when I say that. So just don't go there. Don't be that. Make sure that you have the facts, you have the data. Anything else you want to throw out there statistically that you think would be helpful?
Well,
yes, Moses.
Well, not statistics, but at least find out the motivation for the seller. And if you have had a conversation with the listing agent, what are they looking for? So you can sort of package it to your buyer. Hey, if you do A, B, and C, there's a high probability that your offer is going to be accepted.
Yeah, absolutely right. So Moses makes a great point. Have a conversation with the listing agent. Ask a bunch of questions. Hey, I'm curious, are we the only offer on the table right now, or are there other written offers that have currently been made? Hey, I'm curious, what's the closing date that the seller would most prefer? Hey, I'm curious, have you had other offers in the past that you've rejected, and why? hey, anything else I should know about the sellers and how we can best help them achieve their goals with an offer that might be written by clients I represent, right? All these different conversations that you can have with the listing agent. Now, does the listing agent have a responsibility or an obligation to answer any of them? No, not really. They'd be foolish not to answer some of them, right? Some of those questions were like why wouldn't you answer them? Just remember that there are some listing agents who believe that they say nothing about anything, just present the offer and we'll go from there, right? Those are the listing agents who also work part-time at the CIA. And so therefore they take that cloak and dagger version of their other life into real estate and proceed, right? And then there are some agents who will literally tell you everything that you ever wanted to know and didn't want to know about the seller clients, right? Including the fact that they're currently getting divorced and really need to sell this house, and like things they really should not be saying because those are confidential pieces of information that could affect the negotiations. So you'll run the gamut of what you get. However, that shouldn't stop you, as Moses reminds us, from asking all those questions every single time. If you get info, great, share it with the buyers. If you don't, that's okay. You can tell the buyers, I asked these questions, I did not get any answers or a response that would be helpful. There was one other hand, I think, up that went down. So maybe it was, maybe it's no longer, and I don't know who was up there. Is anybody, go ahead, John.
Nah, I was going to say, kind of touch on what Moses was saying as well, like knowing how to get around certain things, like in terms of like negotiation. Like, for example, like instead of putting $50,000 over asking price, knowing how to do something. And so I have so I'm going to be partnering up with HCF to start hosting seminars in March. And the reason I got that was because I took one of their classes, and in that class, she was not a realtor, she's not an active realtor, but she was a realtor, and she was teaching a certain portion. And I mentioned that line that you said about how in Section 8 of the standard form contract, there's an attorney review period, and how you would schedule your inspection during that period and waive your inspection contingency. And that way you get to get around that so you could present a stronger offer. And I kind of spitted that out word for word in that presentation. And then I seemed like the super knowledgeable guy because she didn't know anything about that. And so like knowing, like it's good to know the numbers, but it's also good to know how to get around the numbers at times. And yeah, that's just strategy, right? John's talking about strategy. So the numbers are crazy important, and strategy, especially in a market that's moving quickly like today, even as important. So number 7 on our buyer transaction, anatomy of buyer transaction, is to produce those market conditions. Month supply of inventory was the last one I wanted to just get out there, right? It's helpful for the buyers to understand month's supply of inventory and the way month's supply of inventory actually works, right? How many months supply dictates a seller's market? Under 4.
Right, so yeah, under 4 or less is pretty much and of course, what we know about most of the markets that you all live and work in right now is that the month supply of inventory is 1 or less than 1. And I mean, it's a massive seller's market. What about a buyer's market? Over how many months is a buyer's market where buyers might have a little more power?
Over 6.
Yeah, over 6 months. And then that 5 to 6 month window in that middle there, that's a transitional market where it could be moving from buyer to seller, it could be moving from seller to buyer, it could be doing both, might swing one way or the other, right? There's that transitional period. However, if you understand that and maybe have a graphic outlining what that looks like in terms of month supply of inventory, and help the buyers understand, like right now, there's 3/4 of a month supply of inventory in this price range in this town. Which ultimately means there's way more of you buyers than there are listings available. And so helping them understand the pace, the velocity of the way things are moving helps them answer the question that they always have for you when they find a house themselves. What is that question they always have for you when they find a house?
What do you think we should offer?
That's exactly right. That's the question they ask every single time. Right. And I would be cautious by just answering that, oh, 575. Right. that it's not really your role to pop out a number. It's your role to say, that's a great question. Let's go back and do some research on what the market might call for. I'll find you the best 3 sold comps, just like your appraiser for your mortgage will do. And you can make some decisions based on current market conditions and actual sold data. How does that sound? And they say, it sounds awesome. Right? Because remember, your job is to interpret current conditions such that the client can make the best decision possible. Not you saying, oh, we'll offer $575, offer $50,000 over. You may get to a conversation later on where strategically you remind them about what the data just showed. So I'm curious, knowing that in a market moving as fast as today, that the list price is the minimum expectation. This is a good script, by the way. In a market moving as quickly as this, knowing that the list price is the minimum expectation that the seller is looking for, I'm curious, where do you think you might want to make an offer to actually be the winner? But it's the idea of helping buyers understand that today the list price, that's where you start. That's not where you end, right? The list price it's a recommendation by the seller, and it's the minimum that they will expect to receive. And so you need to figure out how much more insurance you're going to add on top of that to come out on top. And then, of course, there are strategies like waiving an appraisal contingency or the appraisal gap strategy that Tammy Kranich, another one of your mortgage partners, has talked about on our 9 o'clock calls. Lots of other strategies to help buyers win. However, buyers have to understand that today it's not about how much protection they want to wrap into their contract. I mean, I hate to say that out loud, but that's kind of the truth. It's about how much you can strip down to make sure that you stand out to the sellers so that you're the one who gets picked. That's just the way, that's the arena that we're working in today. Some buyers won't choose to play in that arena. That's okay. But that means they should likely sit out until the market cools. Or else all they're going to do is frustrate themselves and frustrate you and frustrate sellers by making offers over and over and over again that are just simply aren't high enough in terms of price and aren't strong enough, aggressive enough in terms of terms to actually be the winner. Right? What they're doing is they're assisting other buyers in securing homes by continuing to enter and they're prolonging this kind of a market. Because when they're the ones that just help other people win, because now there's a multiple offer and someone else is willing to go above and beyond and they're not, it just keeps fueling the frenzy. If they would sit on the sidelines and now instead of 2 offers, there was just 1 offer and the seller would have to work with just that 1 offer, it may start to actually cool things down a little bit. So they're actually creating their own negative circumstance when you think about it. Lisa.
I'm trying to remember what I was going to ask. I've drawn a blank. I'm sorry.
That's okay. If you think about it, pop your hand up again and I'll stop. So let's keep moving through. We're up to number 8, right? You're going to write up the offer now. Here's what that offer looks like. You have a cover letter that kind of highlights the offer and maybe gives a little detail about the buyer client. My personal opinion is that you should ask the buyer to write their cover letter that you then attach on top of their offer. If you're going to choose to write it, be sure that you send it to them and have them okay it, right? Do note that listing agents are not necessarily required to pass them along those cover letters to their sellers. Some listing agents will tell you it's illegal for you to do that. That's not true, just so we're clear. It is not illegal to write a cover letter. In some scenarios, it can cause some sellers to potentially get mixed up in fair housing issues that they don't want to be mixed up in. But those are some circumstances, some of the time with some sellers. And the state of Connecticut did not outlaw buyer letters. The MLS about a year ago made it sound like they did, but they did not. They encouraged something that I disagree with. But anyway, we'll move on from that. Lisa, is that a new hand or is that your old hand? I think you're muted, Lisa.
Okay, I forgot to take it down, but I remembered the question. Going back to discussing when they ask, you know, what to offer. I have found this past year to be the most frustrating for me because I had the majority of first-time home buyers and millennials, and I have nothing against millennials. My daughter's a millennial. But what I had found consistently was that they know best. And even though they have no experience, they know best. And so they would tell me what they wanted to offer. They didn't want to hear anything, you know, about the market or anything else. It was just, so how do you have a conversation with that kind of buyer?
Yeah, so for me, it always goes back to taking a different approach on how I'm educating, right? I educate a certain way. I'll print all this stuff out. We'll go through one by one. And there are some buyers who decide that they're not so interested in that kind of data. For me, I kind of don't take no for an answer with that kind of conversation. And what I mean by that is I would prefer when someone says, you know what, I think we just want to write up the offer real quick. Understood. However, knowing how much, knowing the struggle that most buyers are having in today's market, my policy when I work with buyers is to review these items in this order before we put pen to paper. So let's do this. We can move through it quickly. You can ask any questions that you might have. However, let's sit down and review these items in this order simply because it will give you better data to make a better decision about moving forward, right? It's a matter of when they say no thanks, I say I completely understand. Let's do it anyway, right? And we educate differently for different people because some you're right. Some people are like, thanks, I don't need anything that you're going to provide. Except that they do, right? And the job that I have, because they signed a buyer agreement with me, my fiduciary responsibility is to figure out how to communicate that information to them. Even if I have to be different, if I have to, because you said something interesting, right? They know best. That's 100% right in some circumstances, right? However, there is a way to educate people who believe they know best. And it's for them to self-discover all of the information so that they can prove themselves right. So all we now need to do is lay out that data in front of them and then ask the right questions such that they're now telling us exactly what's going on in the market so that they prove themselves right. Instead of us showing them how much we know, instead of us saying to them, no, I need to be right. You need to listen, right? That's because sometimes, Emma, I wasn't in the room, Lisa, so I'm not sure exactly what the conversations were. But sometimes as agents, we get parental with people because we care about them, and sometimes that parentalness comes across as what's the word? I have struggled with words today. Like I can't.
Condescending.
Yes, thank you. That's the word I was looking for. It comes across as condescending, right? We don't mean it that way, and sometimes it can be heard that way. So that's what I would say is the balancing act there, is you always, remember, we can't live in the world of if they were different, I'd be better. We just always have to take it back on ourselves to say, okay, well, in this scenario, I need to come at this from a different angle. I need a different approach. I maybe need to be a little bit more aggressive. I need maybe to be a little less aggressive. Maybe I need to ask different questions. Maybe we need to take a break. Maybe I need to get them some water. And with people who do believe that they have all the answers, my task is always to prove them 100% right. You do have all of the answers. They just happen to be all of the answers that are also on the pages in front of me. What a massive coincidence, right? And by enforcing a policy about how you work, and then asking great questions as you review the information, those people who do know it all can come from that spot and still learn.
Okay, let me ask you this, because everybody's so used to doing everything remotely. Everybody's always in a hurry. I found this past year that, besides not wanting to hear about it, last thing they wanted to do was to go sit down somewhere and discuss it, because they had to rush off to, B and then to C. And, they were going to discuss it, then they would give me a call and let me know. And I just I felt like anybody who's from my age, when there were pinballs, pinball games, it's like hitting that table and it goes on tilt. My brain, it just, my brain would freeze. I just didn't really know how to get through to them.
Yeah, and so to me, I think that I'm hearing that perhaps setting different expectations up front would assist in that, right? Having the conversation around, look, when we find the one, the process we're going to follow is when we find the one, we will go back to the office and sit and do some work together. Because when you find the one, the way the market is moving, there's simply no time to think, right? You're literally setting the expectation about how quickly we need to move up front. So Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, if we're seeing 3 homes today, please budget time for at least 2.5 hours to see these 3 homes, in case one of them is the one, because then we'll need about 40 minutes to head back to the office, sit down and work through writing up the offer as quickly as possible to make sure that you are competitive as quickly as possible. So I would help set the expectation that if we're seeing these homes, this is how much time I think you should block, so that you're not blindsided by, nope, we have to run, right? It's all about communication up front. And because again, you can't live in the world of, if they were different, I'd be better. You have to come from a position of, how do I approach these folks differently so that we get the results that we're looking for?
And if you're out of town, say you're in Norwalk, they don't want to, and they live in Norwalk, they don't want to drive back to Stamford to the office. So would you suggest maybe doing a Zoom call with the data in front of them as soon as they?
You could certainly do that. You could, I mean, if you have the MLS on your phone, you could certainly, I will say that one of the phrases that you've repeated a lot is, they don't wanna. And I'm going to tell you, for me, they don't get to make those choices. When you sign a document and you work with me, we have a way we work, and there's a policy in place. And I work the same with everybody. You don't get to make those choices. So perhaps there's a change there that might assist you in creating different results on the tail end. But I don't allow that phrase so much, right? And I don't mean like that from an iron fist perspective. It's about setting different expectations and then being firm about those expectations, right? Firm is a word that I don't think is a negative term when dealing with clients. Firm sometimes is the way you help them move forward, because again, this is all about helping them. It's not about me selling a house. It's about them getting what they said they wanted. And so if they live in Norwalk and you're in Norwalk, maybe you run to their house. Great. You know what? You live close. Time is of the essence. Let's go and do this at your house. I have my laptop. We'll pop that out. Maybe you sit down at a Starbucks, right? Maybe you make some concessions for the sake of urgency. However, the concession for me is not going to be, see you later, call me when you have a decision. Because that doesn't work. That's a waste of everybody's time, starting with theirs in a market moving this quickly.
I think that's key too. And I do think setting those expectations at that initial consultation is key. And even if you have to write it out in a Word doc and tell them to keep that with them so they can refer to the process.
Yeah.
You know, just thank you.
100%. You're welcome. Donna, I'm going to go to you, and then Jonathan, I'm going to come back to you.
Thank you, because I was about to explode. Because you see that. So here's the thing, and Lisa, this is for you, but it's for everybody else. It is all about how you decide you're going to run your business. And you are the expert. You are the person who's driving this bus, this train in this transaction. You know better than they do, even though they think they do, and that's fine. Now, I'm just going to tell you straight up, I am 64 years old. Most of my clients are millennials or just out of that age. And I have a process, and that is the way we're going to go through the transaction. Now, I find, you know, my son is just, he's on the cusp of not being a millennial anymore. But I find that they're very responsive to that. And I hate to talk about them as those people. But I find that they're used to people of my age telling them what to do because I'm like their mother. And I don't go there. They're grown people. They've earned this money. But the mindset when I'm sitting with them or anyone else is, I know how we're going to get through this and how we're going to get to the finish line. And that's what we're going to do. There are times when they might push back, and they might push back a lot, but we're going to have a conversation. We're going to have a discussion about the pricing and what works best. And we're going to go through the steps. And we're going to do that probably more than once. So get ready for that. If this isn't the way, then we should not be working together. It just simply isn't fair to them. I am not being a fiduciary for them if they won't allow me to assist them in this process. So I just had to say, you just have to decide who you're going to be in this transaction and then be it.
Yeah.
I think that's spot on. Absolutely. And I just needed somebody to verbalize that mindset.
Brilliant. Here's the thing that we sometimes get stuck in. There's this idea, this concept out there that the customer is always right. And I personally don't subscribe to that. What I do believe is that the customer's needs always come first, 100%. However, that same customer whose needs always come first is not always right. And I'm not afraid, nor is Donna afraid, to simply say, you know what, I so appreciate that perspective. However, in this scenario, I would ask that you allow my expertise to speak a little bit more loudly than the idea that you just put on the table. Let's do it this way, right? And we just kind of funnel them forward with a let's do it this way. Jonathan and Marlene.
Can I just add one thing and then I'll relinquish. And yeah, so sometimes they just push so hard and it gets so uncomfortable that I will say, okay, fine, let's do it your way. Because I know it's not going to work. I know that. And I also will say sometimes, prove me wrong. That it's fine. I'm happy to be wrong.
Yeah.
And we do it their way. It doesn't work. And then it was like, okay, so do you want to do that again? Or shall we now step in? Do you want to lose another house? Or should we get the next one?
Doctor, it hurts when I do this. Well, what if we stop doing that? Right? Maybe it would hurt less. And you're right. Sometimes people have to learn on their own. However, the important part is if you're not proven wrong, right? And we keep saying right or wrong. I'm not really sure it's about right or wrong. However, there's best practices that sometimes are ignored, right? There's strategies that maybe aren't employed or aren't agreed to. And when that happens, it's important to then do, in the medical world, there's something called an M&M, right? When someone dies, you do a morbidity and mortality review and report, right? For those of you in the medical field, I think I'm saying that properly, right? But the M&M is that review. Okay, well, why did that patient die? What can we do differently next time to make sure the patient doesn't die? And the same can be said for your transaction. Well, why did that die? What can we do differently next time to get a different result? And so if you don't have that review and force that conversation to help people recognize that there are different paths that might create a different result, right? Then you're stuck in a cycle. You've got to be brave enough to say, hey, you know what, before we see another house, let's sit down and have a conversation around what occurred there. What things could have been done differently, right? Here's what we heard back from the listing agent. I'm curious about what your thoughts are. What do you see in all of this, just in case this pops up again, right? Jonathan and then Marlene.
Hey, Rick, going back to the topic of cover letters, what type of information are you putting to these cover?
So for the most part, I think cover letters are just a bullet point of review of the offer, and perhaps some, if the buyer is writing it, they may give a little personal info, right? Just to see if there's any kind of connection point with a seller. For example, if I'm walking through a house with a buyer and I notice pictures of somebody in the Marines, and I happen to know that my buyers are also a military family, right? One of the things that sometimes pushes you over the top is that military families oftentimes like to sell to military families. There's a bond there, there's a community, there's a connection. And so I may intimate to my buyer, you know what, in your cover letter, when you're highlighting the bullet points of your offer, perhaps mention, if you have comfort with disclosing that, perhaps mention that you're a military family. You never know what might have the seller say yes to somebody because of something common. Go ahead, John.
Are you adding a cover letter to every listing or any little transaction that you have, or is it specific ones you try to find that connection between the buyer and the seller?
So for me, everything's a process. There's hardly anything that I do only for one and not for the next. So cover letters for buyers, for buy sides, are part of the process, unless the buyer says, I'm not interested, thank you, but no. Right? If the buyer refuses the cover letter, then we move on without it. But other than that, it's part of my process. Even if it's just my cover letter with a bullet point synopsis of the offer. I just think it completes the package. And as a listing agent for most of my career, it's so helpful to have that kind of synopsis on the front page, so I don't have to flip through 77 pages to figure out what's what. So for me, it's on everything.
Got it. Thank you.
Sure thing. Marlene, did you have, I know you were unmuted. Did you have a question or did we answer it?
You answered it, and what I was going to share, I don't think it's that relevant, so I changed my mind.
Got it. Well, if something else pops up, do let us know. And so let's dive back in. We're fast running out of time. So you're going to write up that offer. You've got the cover letter. You've got your offer written on a document, either an offer to purchase or a purchase agreement or a contract, depending on circumstances. I will talk a little bit more about that on Tuesday. You've got a copy of some kind of a binder check. Typically that's 1%. However, the law does not require 1%. It can be way more, it can be less. It doesn't have to be at all. It is reasonable and customary, however, in our state to have something down when you make the offer. And it is common for that to be 1%. I will tell you that for me personally, as a buyer myself, these last 18 or 20 months or so, that it's been so tough. I've anything I was going to put down, I just wrote the check and gave that all to them right up front. So my 1% was 10% or 15% or 20% or whatnot, just all up front, because I wanted the seller to see the strength of my offer. I wanted to show them that I had money and that I was willing to put it down and bind the contract with more than just 1%. So again, anything to stand out in a competitive market, I started to do. But just note that some version of a binder check is typical in our state. And then, of course, all of the disclosure forms reviewed and signed by the buyers. Any kind of mortgage pre-qualification letter from a mortgage lender, as well as for cash offers, some sort of proof of funds. Number 9, present your offer to the listing agent. If geography permits, deliver it to the listing agent in person. That way you get to see their face and have a conversation around it, right? A lot of times body language and how they react to an offer can be seen in person, and not when you just push the button and send it via email. However, oftentimes geography prevents us from presenting to the listing agent in person. And so therefore PDFing that and sending that off via email would be the way to do that. However, do that sandwiched in between 2 phone calls. Minimally a phone call and a text. And the first phone call, so when Donna Doyle is the listing agent, I'm going to call Donna to ask the questions that Moses pointed out we should be asking earlier. Have that conversation. And then if in fact we then choose to write the offer, I'm going to call Donna again to say, okay, we just finished writing the offer. I'm going to be sending it. What's the best email to send this to you? I'm not necessarily just sending it to the email address that's in the MLS, because my experience is that there are some agents who put one in the MLS, but check something else a whole lot more frequently. It's like you call a couple of hours later and say, okay, I'm waiting for you to respond that you've received my offer. Nope, haven't received it. Okay, well, I sent it to your CB Moves address that's in the MLS. Oh no, I don't look at that. You have to send it to my Gmail account. All right, well, what's that? You don't write that anyplace, right? And it happens way more often than you would expect. So the phone call to Donna is, I have an offer for you. What's the best email address to send it to? She tells me, great, I'm going to be pushing the button in the next 2 minutes. Do me a favor, either call me back or shoot me a quick text confirming receipt and have it and any questions that you might have. I hang up, I push the button. I immediately pick up my phone and send Donna a text. Hey, just sent, please confirm receipt. And if I don't get an answer in about 10 or 15 minutes, then I make another phone call. Hey, I just was following up my text. I want to make sure that you received that offer. Send it to the Gmail. You know what? Do me a favor. I'll just hold. Can you just check that for me real quick? I want to make sure you got it and that you have no offers. Right? So that's me driving the bus and not waiting. I can't tell you, one of the things that drives me the craziest in my business life are buyer's agents who send things off into oblivion and then wash their hands of it and wait for a response from a listing agent. I have, and I'm not making this up, some of you have heard me complain about this before. I have had agents who come to me saying, Rick, I just don't know what to do. Can you help me? Well, of course, sure. What's the issue? Well, I sent an offer in on a property and I haven't heard back. Well, when did you send the offer in? On Monday. On Monday, it's Thursday. What do you mean you haven't heard? Have you called? Have you texted? Have you shown up at their office? Have you put shackles on their car? Have you sent the police to their home because maybe they've befallen some horrible fate? Like, what have you done? And the answers are oftentimes blank stares and, well, you know, I sent it. I'm waiting for their response. Guys, remember, fiduciary responsibility. You have to behave as if your client's life depends on them having this offer accepted, because that's what you signed up for when they signed that piece of paper. And so you've got to be way more aggressive. Now, again, when I say the word aggressive, if Donna Doyle and I had an experience where she was on the list side and I was on the buy side, I can guarantee you that I would be as aggressive as I am with anyone and everyone, regardless of how good she is. I'll be as aggressive. And in the end, if someone on the outside asked Donna how it was to work with me, Donna would say, oh, I loved working with him. He gets things done. She wouldn't say, oh, he's such a pain in the ass. He's so aggressive. Oh, I didn't even want to answer his phone call. Because guys, there is a way to be firm and aggressive on behalf of your clients and still maintain a really positive relationship with the agent on the other side of the transaction. It's not about being mean and nasty. It's about being thorough. It's about making those phone calls. Hey, Donna, it's Rick. I'm so sorry to be a pest. I just wanted to make sure that you got that offer. I completely know how busy you are, and I'm so sorry to have bothered you. Those are the calls that I make, instead of, you know what, you told me you would answer me, and I still haven't gotten a response from you. Did you get the offer or not? And I know that that second one sounds like, well, who would do that? Yeah, I'm going to tell you, I've been in this business way too long. The answer is 60 or 75% of the agent body. Right? Because sometimes agents make mistakes thinking that advocating for a client means making sure that they're doing battle with the other side. Here's what I can tell you. Battle with the other side is the perfect way for transactions not to come together. It's about finding common ground to help everybody move forward. It's not about winning or losing. Just saying. Number 10, ask the listing agent when you might expect to hear back from them. So in that text or in that phone call I'm making to Donna, I'm going to ask the question. Hey, Donna, I'm curious, any thoughts about when we might hear back from your sellers? I'm going to ask the question. Because in the scenario I just gave, if Donna says, yes, definitely by Thursday, well, we have to have a little bit more of a conversation, because 4 days from when I gave her the offer, that doesn't work. And so Donna says, well, you know, everyone kind of gets home late from work. And so I'm thinking we likely will have an answer to you by about 7:30 this evening. Great, it's about 6 o'clock now. Donna, again, at the risk of sounding like a pest, if I haven't heard from you by about 7 or 7:15, is it okay if I just check in? Again, I'm setting expectations. I am aggressively setting expectations, but in a kind manner. I'm asking permission. And what I have found is when you behave that way, listing agents on the other side understand why you're asking. And most of the time say, you know what, that would be just fine. And so by 7:15, if I still haven't heard back, I'm going to give it a little jingle. And for me today, it would be a text jingle. Hey, just checking in, right? Because that's less intrusive and a little less annoying than a phone call. However, once it's 7:31, now my responsibility to my buyers is to pick up the phone and call. Do you see how that works? Do you see how ultimately what we're talking about is you driving the bus on behalf of your client instead of relinquishing control of the entire thing and waiting for a response? That's the same version of if they were different, I'd be better. Nope, you have to be better. That's how you change the outcome. That's how you get different results. Barbara, question?
No. Do I have
Okay. I'm going to mute you because there's some background noise going on in the back. Okay, so we are fresh out of time. I'll finish with this. Number 11, monitor the response from the sellers, right? I just said this about that, right? You ask when they're going to respond, and then if they haven't responded by then make a quick phone call, right? If Donna said 7:30, well, if it's 7:31, then we get to have another phone call. Hey, how's it going? I know we had said 7:30, just seeing if there was any answer. I have anxious buyers, and so I'm just looking to quell their anxiety. Where are we? Any info? And so we get to have that conversation. And Donna says, you know what? They are working on it. We may need another half hour. So you're thinking by about 8 or so? Yes. Great. I look forward to hearing back. The other thing that I have always done, more so when I'm buying for myself, because frankly, I didn't think about it back then. But when I talk to listing agents, I come from the perspective of, hey, Donna, just pushing this offer out to you. When do you think we might hear back with an acceptance? So I plant the seed that we're the ones you're going to say yes to. When do you think we might hear back with an acceptance? So just throwing that out there. All right, Brett, last question, and then we're done for the evening.
No, I just kind of had a personal question. Do you ever go into some of your investment properties? I'm sure most people know who you are possibly, but do you ever go in and they don't know who you are and you kind of act, you know what I mean? I'm just curious. As far as like buying a property, like, I mean, a lot of people in this business probably know who you are personally, but do you ever go in and they don't know who you are, but, and you kind of, you know what I mean? Just for, I'm just curious.
Yeah, more times than not.
Yeah, exactly.
I think I'm far less of a celebrity than you may think, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, anyway.
Yeah, and so if I think I know where you're going with that, I behave the same either way. Again, because the way I run my business, whether it's on behalf of a client or if I'm my own client, is the same. So I show up the same and I run things the same. I ask the same questions. I push the same way. I'm aggressive the same way. I'm firm the same way. I'm helpful the same way. All of that is the same. And if the listing agent knows me and I'm buying for myself, that's just a bonus. I still run the same plays. It's still the same path. And the bonus may be that I am a known entity. And so then when I am a known entity, I'll just simply ask the agent to go ahead and go to bat for me. Hey, and you know, when you say yes to me, you get to a closing table quick and easy. So do me a favor, make sure that your sellers know that. So I will ask for the bonus, but all the rest of it is 100% the same. Whether or not I've done one transaction with you, this is the first time, or we've done 50 transactions together. It's the same because I don't know how to operate differently. It is a process. It is a script. It is a structure and a plan. And I start here and I end here and we go through the plan.
Yeah.
All right, guys, that's what we have time for this evening. Remember your homework, right? We're going to start on Tuesday reviewing your homework. So make sure you get that done, your lead generation plan. We'll finish the anatomy of buyer transaction and move to your buyer scripts. In that link, there are buyer consultation scripts. It's called Mastering the Buyer Consultation. Do me a favor, as another part of your homework, just go through those, read those through so that when we start going through them the second half on Tuesday, it's not completely foreign to you. You've heard it, you've seen the words, you understand a little bit about the flow of the script, and then we'll break that down and get you some real clarity around conducting that buyer consultation at a high level. I'm excited to start that with you. I hope this was helpful. Have a great rest of your week. Have a spectacular weekend. Start doing all the work you have to do to make sure you're shoveling and don't pull anything. Good luck with the storm. I'll see you tomorrow morning at 9. Have a great one.
Thank you,
Thank you
Rick.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.